This is the United States of America's only high-speed train. Welcome aboard the Acela Express. Today I'm going to be taking this train on a journey up the East Coast to see if high-speed rail in America is really worth the money. I'll be riding in business class on America's flagship train, and checking out all of the onboard facilities, including the stylish cafe car. So join me as I give my honest opinion on the Amtrak Acela Express. Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I'm here in New York's Penn station in the brand new Moynihan train hall, and I'm going to be travelling on America's only true high-speed train and Amtrak's flagship service. I'm travelling on board the Acela Express over to New Haven in business class. Let's go. Welcome to New York. This is Pennsylvania Station, in particular the newly refurbished Moynihan train hall, opened in early 2021. The Moynihan train hall is named after former US Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who campaigned for the project during his time representing the city of New York in government. The building itself was formerly a post office, designed to resemble the original Penn station, which was lamentably demolished in the 1960s to much international outrage. Here inside the new station building, things are looking fantastically clean, as you'd expect for a station just barely a few years old. The main concourse is truly a sight to behold, and I must admit I was blown away when I entered the space for the first time. It's so light and airy, and the intricacy of the roof is very impressive. I also really like how the station looks in the dark, with lighting used thoughtfully to make it feel real classy. You can find a ticket office here in the main concourse, but outside of that, most of the space is used for shops and eateries. At the ripe old hour of 6 AM though, unfortunately most of these were shut. That is with the exception of Starbucks, which seems to be doing a roaring trade. One thing that I did notice though was the complete lack of seating at the station. Luckily, there is a dedicated waiting room for all passengers with a valid ticket. The ticketed waiting hall was a great space to wait for a train. In fact, it's even nicer than some first-class lounges I've used in parts of Europe. You can find cushioned wooden benches, which resemble historical waiting areas, with more comfort of course. The waiting area is also adorned with photographs showcasing the history of stations in the New York area. Conveniently, you can find USB sockets and standard power sockets throughout the entire waiting room. Overall, this was a really nice place to wait for the train. It's worth noting that most business class tickets grant access to the Amtrak lounge here, but Acela business class tickets do not count. Only first class is permitted entry. 3 different train companies operate from New York Penn. Here you can see the departure board for Long Island Railroad, who operate commuter trains from Midtown Manhattan along the full length of Long Island. There's also NJ Transit, who operate commuter trains westwards into the neighbouring state of New Jersey. However, they use a different concourse at the station. The last operator is Amtrak, which is America's national long-distance train company. My train will be number 2190, departing at 6:15 AM towards Boston South. Around 15 minutes prior to boarding, the track number is announced. We'll be departing from track 9 today, so let's head on down and take a look at the train. Brace yourself for a little bit of a surprise though, as the low-level area of the station is not quite as grand as the fancy new concourse. And here's our ride for this morning. It's one of Amtrak's 20 Acela Express trains, built in 2000 for speeds up to 150 miles an hour. High-speed rail on this route has quite an interesting history. In the 1990s, Amtrak imported a few brand new state-of-the-art trains from Europe for testing, namely the X2000 tilting train from Sweden, which I think really suited Amtrak well, and Germany's fantastic ICE high-speed train. This led to the development of the Acela Express you see before me, and what an iconic design. I've long adored how this train looks, and to finally see one in person was something really exciting to me. And soon I'll be taking my first ride on one too. These power cars are based on the French Astride locomotives, and clearly with a lot of design inspiration from the French TGV. The passenger carriages are based on the Canadian LRC design. These trains are formed of just 6 passenger carriages between 2 power cars. Of these, one of them is the cafe car, which we'll take a look at later, and one of them is reserved for first class ticket holders. I'll be travelling in Coach 2, which is one of the business class carriages. Unlike most trains in the world, first class is actually better than business class on the Acela, making business class the lowest class on offer here. Anyway, business class is in a 2+2 seating layout, mostly in airline style with a few table seats available. I'll be sitting here in seat 8A, a forward-facing seat at the window. Today's route starts by crossing New York's East River twice, before then heading northeast over the Connecticut state line and beside the Long Island Sound all the way to New Haven. The journey is scheduled to take 1 hour and 43 minutes to cover 76 miles, or about 122 kilometres. Departure from New York Penn is on time at 6:15 AM. As we pull out of the station, you can catch a glimpse of a northeast regional service, these being the slower and often cheaper trains that operate alongside the Acela. After departure, the train heads into darkness. We are currently passing through the East River Tunnel, constructed in the early 1900s and opening in 1910 alongside the original Pennsylvania station. The tunnels are rather unique in that they are powered by both third rail and overhead wire electrification systems, and due to a lack of ventilation, diesel-powered trains are not permitted. It looks like a fantastic sunrise is on the way, but while we wait, let's have a look around the train. As I mentioned earlier, business class is in a 2+2 seating layout, and we'll have a look at the comfort and the space of the seat a little later on. By the way, every carriage here has a wheelchair space and accessible toilet, which is good to see. I'm currently heading to Amtrak's Cafe Acela, which is the onboard buffet area on the train. This is a really classy looking buffet car, and I just love the dimly lit seating area with spotlights, as well as large windows for viewing the passing scenery. As I didn't yet have breakfast, I thought I'd take a look at the food offering. The menu has a good selection of food for breakfast, as well as lunch and dinner options, and of course plenty of snacks and drinks. I went for an iced lemon cake and a cup of hot tea for a cost of $6.50. By this point, the sun had risen to a level where we can start to see our surroundings. Unfortunately, we aren't going very fast, yet already the ride is bumpy enough that my hot drink nearly spills. We're now passing through one of the many regional stations on our route today, Harrison. The entire line from New York to New Haven also sees a frequent service operated by Metro-North Railroad, part of MTA, New York's publicly owned transit authority. Anyway, it's time to take a look at the seat. Seats here in business class are in a navy leather design, which I personally think looks really smart. As for comfort, these seats are really well padded and comfortable. They also had good ergonomic support. One thing I did notice was that the seats were really upright, to a degree that it was actually quite uncomfortable. Thankfully, on the armrest you can find a button which releases the seat's recline. And once fully reclined, it was a lot more relaxing. Between seats you can find a well-padded folding armrest. Though rather irritatingly, the armrests at the aisle and window were only partially padded, with the remainder being an uncomfortable metal surface. The armrests also feature an entertainment system. In days past, this would have provided passengers with various audio stations, but nowadays they don't work. As for legroom, the amount of space is absolutely fantastic here on the Acela. You'll certainly have no trouble finding plenty of room to stretch out and relax, or do some work. Down here you can find a folding footrest, which was well sized and added even more to the comfort. Above this, you can find the deployable seatback table. This was fairly sturdy, despite its somewhat dubious appearance, and offered a large surface for working or eating on. Beyond the table, you can find a small net for storing smaller items, but beware, this is very out of sight, so make sure you don't leave anything behind. I've been blessed by a truly beautiful sunrise this morning, which warmly lit up the skies along today's route. This is the Connecticut Turnpike, which runs from New York State to Rhode Island via the entire length of Connecticut. It's also a clear indicator that we've crossed the state lines into Connecticut, the state in which the remainder of the journey will be taking place. This station is Old Greenwich, which of course is named after Greenwich in London. We are now in the city of Stamford, which with 135,000 residents is Connecticut's second largest city by population. As we cross over the Rippowam River, try saying that one 3 times really fast, we pull into our first and only calling point on today's route. This is Stamford's Stuart B. McKinney Transportation Centre. As well as seeing rail service from Amtrak, Metro North Railroad and CT Rail, the station also has a major bus terminal for long-distance buses and local services alike. We depart Stamford on time, just after 7 AM, continuing along the shores of the Long Island Sound. Here we catch a glimpse of Stamford Depot, which is responsible for maintaining Metro North Railroad and CT Rail electric trains, designed by Kawasaki Heavy Industries of Japan. This is the Norwalk River Bridge, a swing bridge originally built in 1896 to replace the previous bridge that was destroyed. The original crossing was the site of a horrific rail accident in 1853, involving an express train plunging into the river due to the bridge being open at the time. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the other amenities here in Acela Business Class. One power socket for each seat can be found at the wall, this of course being a necessity for the modern business traveller. Above the seat, there's a personal reading light, which can also be adjusted. All windows have curtains, which I thought was a nice touch. It's definitely more classy than a sunblind. But I surely can't be the only one who thinks these curtains look a little bit Scottish. Whilst the windows were large and ideal for sightseeing, they certainly weren't in good condition. The rest of the train was definitely dated, but not in disrepair like the window seals. For luggage space, the Acela has sizable overhead luggage lockers, which isn't very common to see on trains, but I guess it does the job. I suppose it might even be necessary, given how poor the ride quality is. This station is Bridgeport, and despite being Connecticut's largest city, this train does not stop here. I don't really understand this, so if you know why this is, then please let me know in the comments. Let's take a quick look into First Class, the highest class offering on Acela and Amtrak's most premium service. This here is the galley, where the complimentary first class meals are stored and prepared. I wasn't allowed in First Class, so here's an image of the large comfy seats and the dinner service instead. Each carriage has 2 toilets, one wheelchair accessible one and a regular one. These are modern vacuum toilets, and were in good condition overall. Soap and water were both available. And a strong hand dryer is provided too. Interestingly, cups are provided. I assume this means that tap water here is good for drinking, which is unusual for a train. Now on to how much I paid for this journey. And of course the big question, is it worth it? For this trip, I bought a one-way business class fare at a price of $85. I honestly cannot say that this is good value for money here, and this is the cheapest non-refundable fare in the lowest class of travel. The Acela was not a very speedy experience, covering just 76 miles in 1 hour and 45 minutes. For comparison, the Northeast regional service that I caught in the opposite direction took the same amount of time with a similar amount of comfort, and it was less than a third of the price. Whilst I enjoyed my ride on the Acela, the comfort and speed advantage over the slower Metro North Railroad trains doesn't make up for the eye-watering price, which works out at nearly $1 per mile. In the near future, these Acela Express trains are set to be replaced by brand new Avelia Liberty train sets, based on the newest model of France's TGV and Italian Pendolino tilting designs. With better performance and increased capacity, I'm certainly looking forward to coming back and giving these flashy new trains a go. For now though, we're arriving into New Haven Union Station, a few minutes early at 7:55 AM.
This is New Haven, now New Haven, Connecticut. Please watch your step, doors opening right side of the train.
Overall, I can't say I was too impressed with the Acela. Whilst it's definitely comfortable and spacious, and it has a decent onboard catering offer, it has its problems. Namely, despite theoretically being a fast train, this capability can only be used on certain sections of track. and I personally think the price is way too high. But as always, let me know what you thought of Amtrak's Acela service in the comments below, and for a look at the French high-speed TGV that inspired America's Acela, then click up here now.